Hello everybody, this is Mr. Rob and welcome to the final episode of the Seattle Mariners franchise here on MLB The Show 23. Today is the series finale for your Seattle Mariners, so we're just going to kind of recap the season, just recap the series so far because it was only 1 year, and just kind of maybe at the end talk about maybe some of my plans for the future, like MLB The Show 24, as well as what you'll see on the channel. So if you're excited for this one, I know it's the end of a series, so sometimes it's a little harder to get excited, but if in case you are and you've enjoyed the series, make sure you drop a like and you subscribe down below, especially if you want more franchise content. Your guys' likes and supports are the driving force behind the channel. It's why I keep doing these series. So we are going to end this series after 1 year. I know I don't like to end series after 1 year because you don't really get a chance to build things, but this was a little bit of a different series. One, it is baseball, and baseball does have a much longer season, and I like to go more in depth. But I do think I went a little bit too in depth. I probably gave too many recaps, too many minor league check-in episodes and everything. So I definitely could have made the series extend a little bit more. But this was always going to be just kind of like a pilot series because this is my first sports series back since doing sports content back in June. So I started this 2 months after the game came out. So it's just kind of like that intro series back into the genre for me. And then another way I look at if I want to do another season of a series is how much time I have left. And with baseball being a long season and MLB The Show 24 probably coming out in about 3 months, I don't know if I can really get through a full series or a full season the way I'd like to. So I'm just going to end it here after one season. So we're just going to take a look at the season and what happened. Starting off with the playoffs, the Seattle Mariners, our team did make the playoffs, and we made it all the way to the ALCS, which has been a theme in my baseball series, and we lost in 5 games to the Toronto Blue Jays, who did end up going, as we saw, to the World Series and knocking out the San Diego Padres in 6. We were a 2 seed. We knocked out the Guardians in 4 in the ALDS, but then we were unable to knock off the Toronto Blue Jays. Here's how the season went. In the regular season, the Blue Jays were the World Series winner. They were also the best team in the American League. They went 103-59. The Yankees made it as well as a wild card, 89-73. In the Central, it was the Guardians who won it 95-67, and the White Sox were able to get in at an 81-81 record to make the postseason. It was a very top-heavy year across the board. You'll see a lot of the division winners won the division by a lot of games, including us. We went 102-60. Our first 100-win season, most wins we've had since 2001, but we weren't able to capitalize and get to the World Series. The Astros, they went 90-72. They also made the playoffs. This is how the wild card breakdown is. An exciting race to the end, but obviously the Astros, Yankees, and White Sox were able to get through. And then National League side of things, the Mets won then at least 99-63, but the Braves also made it to the postseason at 88-74. In the Central, this was the closest division. The Cubs only won by 4 games. They finished 88-74. And in the West, it was the Dodgers, the best team in baseball during the regular season, 109-53. But in typical Dodgers fashion, they did not get it done in the playoffs. They have got it done recently. I shouldn't say in typical fashion, but that old horse, that old thing came to bite them in the butt again. The Giants also made the wild card, as well as the Padres. The Padres are actually the worst wild card team. They got in on a tiebreaker over the Brewers, and they were able to take it all the way to the World Series. So that's good for them. I'm going to switch over to my regular season save file so we can go through stats. Otherwise, we're just going to be looking at postseason stats. And I do want to look at all the season stats. So let's go ahead and switch to our other file. All right, so we're back here in the regular season, so we can go look at some of our player stats. This is where we'll spend the majority of the time. I'm just going to talk about certain players and stuff. We'll start off on the offensive side of things. We'll just go position by position. In the catcher position, it was Cal Raleigh who was the starter. He went 228, hitting 13 homers, 48 RBIs for us. He was a good catcher. His strength, though, was his defense. He was sensational at throwing out batters. Throwing out runners, excuse me. He definitely had an over 50% stolen base rate. At least the games I played, he was able to throw out a ton of batters. If somebody tried to steal a base, Cal Raleigh would throw him out, and it was great to have that piece on the defensive side of things. Yeah, he only hit 228, but I was okay with that. He's a switch hitter. He's only 26. He's getting better, and that was part of the reason why we were able to trade Tom Murphy, our backup catcher, at the trade deadline, because I had a lot of faith in Cal Raleigh. Because of the trade of Tom Murphy, Cooper Hummel ended up being our backup catcher. He didn't play a ton of games. He only played in 26. He hit 240, which is pretty decent considering he's only a 66 overall. If we did play a season 2, I probably would have upgraded the catcher position, but Cooper Hummel was he was the stopgap for that time. At first base, Ty France led the way there, hitting .310, 21 homers, 87 RBIs. He had a really, really good regular season. Unfortunately, he hit under 200 in the postseason, so he was very much missing in our lineup. And it just kind of turned into our Achilles heel during the playoffs. Our hitting was just not up to par with our pitching, and most notably is because Ty France was not hitting at these regular season numbers. Now, during the regular season, it was great. He was like top 10 in average in the American League with his .310, and I think would have made a big difference had he played a lot better in the postseason. Also at first base, we had Jared Walsh. Now, we didn't see a lot of Jared Walsh, unfortunately. He was the big guy we got at the trade deadline where we sent Tom Murphy and Justin Topa to the Angels to upgrade our DH versus lefties, and he was playing great. He came in, hit a lot of home runs. He had 23, which was at the time our team leading in home runs, but he got hurt. He fractured his forearm and never returned to the team, so he only spent about 3 weeks with the Seattle Mariners before going on IL. Another bat that we definitely could have had in the postseason. It would have been great to have Jared Walsh in the lineup, especially with Robinson Cano really, really struggling in the month of October. I do think Jared Walsh could have made that impact, so it's unfortunate we didn't get to see him for much more. Other first base we had was we called up Evan White late in the season as well. He spent some time with us, then he went down to AAA for a while, ended the season back with the Mariners. 23 games, 220 average. I mean, somebody who would be in the future plans because he's on this really weird contract where he signed for at least $3 million for the next 5 seasons. So that's just interesting. That's really all I was able to pull from Evan White, though. At second base, Colton Wong was there. He did get hurt in the postseason in the ALCS, so he did miss a couple of games. But he was the leadoff hitter for most of the season, during the regular season that was. He had 250, 304 OPP, 13 homers, 53 RBIs. I mean, he was serviceable, wasn't great. He is 32, and he would have been a free agent after this season. I was going back and forth if I would have brought Colton Wong back. At first, I would have said no, but then I looked at some of the free agents who would be second basemen, and I do think Colton Wong would have had another season with the Seattle Mariners because the second base free agent market was not very good. But he was our leadoff hitter, so I got to give him some respect for that. Also at second base, one of the coolest stories during the regular season was Robinson Cano. Now, we signed him in the early parts of the month of May. We had Tommy La Stella as like a backup infielder, and Tommy La Stella was not really playing that good, so we DFA'd him, and I was like, I mean, we got an open roster spot. Why not just bring Cano, just kind of for like a swang song, give him that one final season with the Mariners, or a team he's been with before. Just let him retire with a little bit of dignity. And he came in at the age of 40 and actually played really well. He hit 278, 317 OPP, 426 slugging. That's an OPS of 743. I mean, that's his best numbers in quite some time. He only played 66 games. He was mostly used against righties, and he got a lot of day offs. He was playing DH for most of the year, though. He had 7 homers, 45 RBIs, and I know at least one of those homers was a grand slam. So Robinson Cano, he should retire. I would think he would retire after this year. And I do think we did a good job of at least giving him that one final season that he could tip his hat on. But it was just really cool to have Robinson Cano back with the Seattle Mariners. Also, we had Cesar Hernandez, who ended up being a utility infielder, who's more of depth. He played 28 games for us, hit 223. He was pretty good in his limited time, but, just the middle infielder backup position. At third base, it was Eugenio Suarez, who was the starting third baseman for most of the season. He started off as just like a home run or bust kind of guy. I mean, he was hitting under 200, and then he was hitting nothing but dingers. He hit 26 on the season in 116 games. But somewhere in the month of June and July, he turned into actually a home run hitter and an average hitter. As you can see, his average got all the way up to 261. He had an OPS of 840, which is his best since 2019 with the Reds. So it was good to see it turn it on, but unfortunately, you can see in the top right corner, he ended up fracturing his forearm. So he did not also make our lineup in the postseason. Another bat we graciously missed, as when he went on injury, he was our leader in home runs, which, I mean, that was a trend with Walsh and Suarez. So unfortunately, we did miss his bats. We had Dylan Moore at third base, which, speaking of him, he was up next. kind of underperformed this year. He is basically a super utility player. You can see he plays every position besides catcher, and that's just kind of where I see where his cap is. And when we needed him to play third base every single day, that's where a lot of our struggles came from. He only hit 214, OBP of 322, which is not good considering he was hitting leadoff for a lot of the time. That's probably an adjustment that I should have made in the postseason, is taking Dylan Moore out of that leadoff position. But, hindsight's 2020. But he was a great super utility infielder guy that unfortunately had to play third base every day. At shortstop, we only had one guy listed. It was J.P. Crawford, who had a very, very good season. And this is probably one of the biggest things for me that I was very happy about. You'll see that in a second. He played in 143 games, 286 average, 7 homers, 55 RBIs. Going into this series, when I thought I was going to do multiple years, I was worried about J.P. Crawford. I was like, listen, he's already 28. He's a low 70s. I'm not sure if he's going to get much better. And you can look at his contract for the next 4 years. I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to get stuck with J.P. Crawford. He's going to start declining. We're going to have to somehow maneuver around his contract. Well, he definitely proved me wrong. He played great, arguably his best season of his career. And I would be very confident with J.P. Crawford being the starting shortstop for at least the next 2 seasons. So I was very impressed. I was very happy with J.P. Crawford. He hit 2 for most of the year. And he was really our only true lefty bat in the lineup every single day. And I really think he held down that job. You can see how much he's improved. He did go down a little bit against lefties contact-wise, but +7 to his contact versus righties. J.P. Crawford was really good. He was a staple in the lineup. I was glad to have him at shortstop. Then you get into the outfield. At left field, we had A.J. Pollock. Whoops, excuse me. This is my controller messing up a little bit, but he was our starting left fielder, hit 288. He was 35 years old, and you can see he is declining, but he had another very solid year with us, 20 homers, 63 RBIs. He also did disappear a little bit in the postseason, and he is a free agent after this year, so that would have been one of my sort of things to maneuver around, is do I wanted to bring back Pollock for another year? I think the answer to that question probably would have been yes, because I was giving the role to Sam Haggerty. He is our backup left fielder in our organization, and he had to start in the postseason because of injuries. And I was like, well, this is Sam Haggerty's chance to really kind of prove if he's ready to take that leap into left field, because he's a lot like Dylan Moore. He's a super utility player, but he's a little bit younger, and he has 3 years of team control. So I was like, if he improves in the playoffs, then maybe he could be our starting left fielder. He hit 250 in the regular season, but hit under 200 in the postseason, so I don't think he really earned that job to be the starting left fielder of the future. He would have probably just spent another year as a super utility guy, but at least he didn't make progress in his attributes, which you can see, so he probably would have been a little bit of a piece going forward. Then we also have Nick Solak, who played in 7 games with us, another super utility guy that we just kind of called up because we had a ton of injuries. He was not able to be a part of the postseason team, though, just because he was called up so late in the year, but he played in 7 games at 294. I guess that's pretty good. The best player on our offense, though, Julio Rodriguez, the rookie of the year from a season ago, and honestly, he got better. He hit 285. He hit 20 homers, 91 RBIs. I know the home run number went down, but you can see all of his other stats were doing pretty good. And one of the big ones is he stole 32 bases. He was a beast on the base pass. Easily the best player in the lineup, made the All-Star team. J-Rod, the staple of this franchise for years to come. Mariners fans should be very elated that they have this guy for quite some time, because J-Rod could be the next great Seattle Mariner, and he showed it here in this series. And finally, for the position players, Teoscar Hernandez in right field. He played 137 games for us. He was the big trade that the Mariners made before the season from the Toronto Blue Jays, and the jury was out for him, I would say, for a good bit of the year, but he really turned it on late. His numbers got up in terms of average and his home runs, and you can see he has a lot of similar numbers to last year. His home runs went up, his average is about the same, his OPP was virtually identical. Slugging was a little bit down, but he played pretty good. I was happy with him. He was our big free agent after this year, and I was prepared to give him the 3-4 year contract that he probably wanted. I think he earned it. He was the second best hitter besides Julio in the postseason. If we didn't have J-Rod, Teoscar Hernandez really stepped up, and I do think he would have earned that chance to be the starting right fielder for years to come. So then we'll go to the pitching side of things. We'll kind of go through starting pitchers first. The strength of this Mariners team coming into this series was their pitching. Their 5-man rotation was really good, and it probably would have stayed the same for a long time, so I wouldn't have really seen anything change with these guys. George Kirby was first. He was our ace of the staff. He only went 374 though, and not really like ace numbers, but he didn't really have to be either because we had so many other good pitchers. I don't think this would have been cause for worry because I do think George Kirby is really good. You can see so many more years of team control as well. I mean, 25 years old. Him and this man, Logan Gilbert, were really just like number 1 and number 2, and they will be number 1 and number 2 for this team for years to come because Gilbert's also 25. He had a good season, a sub-3 ERA, pitched 189 innings. Very good for him. So Kirby and Gilbert were our top 2. Then in the third spot, you have a former Cy Young Award winner in the lefty Robbie Ray, so not a bad problem to have. He had a good season at age 31, 334 ERA. Is better of his 2 stints with the Mariners. He is under contract for a long time, though, into his age 34 season. So maybe down the stretch, it would have been a little tough to see how much he would decrease because you can see he is regressing and have to maneuver around that situation. Then you got Luis Castillo, who was also the ace of the staff. I know said Kirby was, it technically was Luis Castillo, but he also didn't do very good. 3.54 ERA, it's not really ace-like numbers, especially coming off of a sub-3 season. He allowed a lot more home runs, you could see. He walked a good bit more batters. He did strike out more, but his whip went up. And then he was a 2.9 WAR, so that went down a little bit. So Castillo, another guy who was on the books for a lot of money in the upcoming years, which is kind of the trend with this Mariners rotation, is they have a lot of good players that'll be the rotation for a few years. But how do you maneuver the contracts of Ray and Castillo? That would have been fun to sort of figure out. Then finally, in the 5th spot, we had Chris Flexen, who, if you just look at the rest of the guys, Flexen is kind of the odd man out. He's not on the same level as Kirby, Gilbert, Castillo, Ray in terms of name value, but he did very good as a 5th rotation guy. He had a 3.40 ERA, pitched 177 innings for us, had a 113 whip, which is lower. I mean, he had a good season, a 3.1 WAR. So I was very impressed with Chris Flexen. I was debating at the trade deadline, should I acquire like a 5th pitcher in the rotation, but I didn't think I need to. I thought Flexen did a good job, and he kind of made that mute. So I'm very impressed with the way he played. Then we get into the bullpen, starting off with our long reliever in Marco Gonzalez. He had a not very good start to the season. He wasn't pitching very well. He actually got hurt for like 2 months. He missed all of the summer, but he came back and played solid. He got his ERA down to 3.87. At one point, it was in the 5s, but he's another guy that's on the books for a couple of seasons, so I don't think he would have really been on this team much longer. Maybe made the roster the next year, but I would have been trying to either A, move him if we could, or try to find a replacement. And then the MVP of our bullpen was Penn Murphy during the regular season. He was an all-star pitcher with ease. 0.80 ERA. I mean, he played in 69 games. He was the guy that I called to. If I needed a guy out of the bullpen, it was Penn Murphy. His name fits. He is the master of the pen, and he played really good in the regular season. Unfortunately, we got to the postseason, and I don't know where that Penn Murphy went. He played very bad in the ALCS and actually blew one of the leads we had against the Toronto Blue Jays. So that was unfortunate. But Penn Murphy, I mean, maybe it was just, the postseason jitters, but he's still a guy that I would have turned to in the bullpen in those situations. One of the guys we acquired in the pen was Yency Almonte. We got him from a trade with the Los Angeles Dodgers early on in the season. He had very good. He was basically the number 2 guy in the pen, a 2.25 ERA and 76 innings pitched. He was also very solid. Diego Castillo was there, 3.02 ERA, another good year for him out of the bullpen, actually better than it was in 2022, and he's still improving, so another solid piece to have back there. Another player we acquired closer to the deadline was Brusdar Graterol, who we also got from the Los Angeles Dodgers. 3.53 ERA for him out of the bullpen. We had a very stacked middle group between these 4, Murphy, Almonte, Castillo, and Graterol. Then we get into the later innings where we had Paul Sewald, who was our setup guy, 2.78 ERA with him. He was a closer last year, but we turned that position over this year to Andres Munoz, who was one of the best closers in baseball. 51 saves in his first real chance to be the closer. He was a setup man last year, got the job this year, 188 ERA, an all-star in the reliever role. Then we also have Justice Sheffield, who got a little bit of time. He kind of split between the majors in AAA, 5.53 ERA. Not a good season for him. He is 26, so he still has some time, and he is a lefty, which is something this team really didn't have. So I would have liked to see him improve in 2024. And then Matt Brash, who pitched in 49 and a third innings. He was another guy in the bullpen. He was a little bit down the food chain, so to speak. So he didn't see as much action as the other guys. But that does it for our team. We'll take a look at the awards now and see who won certain things. Starting off with the American League, the MVP was Mike Trout. He gets another one of those to add to his collection. 45 homers, 112 RBIs, 309 average. Judge came in second. Go to the Cy Young. Shane Bieber gets another one, his second time winning the Cy Young Award. 178 ERA. Absolutely crushed it this year as the pitcher. Very well deserved. Batting title goes to Oscar Gonzalez of the Twins. Now, the Guardians traded Gonzalez for Tyler Mahle early in the year, and that looks like it was a mistake. Gonzalez was a great season, and he's only 25, so I was very surprised that the Guardians traded him to especially a division rival. So it looks like the Twins really got a guy they can build that lineup around. Reliever of the year was Clay Holmes. I'm surprised he didn't go to Jordan Romano, who led all of baseball with saves, but I guess a 270 average is not as good. Munoz, you can see, came in second for that position. Rookie of the year was Gunnar Henderson of the Baltimore Orioles, put together a plus 300 season. That's very good for their third base prospect. In the Hank Aaron Award, it was Mike Trout. Gold Gloves, you got Chris Bassett getting it for the Blue Jays. Catcher goes to Adley Rutschman of the Orioles. First base goes to Ty France. He gets a Gold Glove for his defensive ability. So we do get somebody getting an award. Second base was Jonathan Scope of the Tigers. Third base, DJ LeMahieu of the Yankees. Shortstop, Carlos Correa of the Twins. And then the outfield, Oswaldo Cabrera of the Yankees. Harrison Bader, also of the Yankees. And George Springer of the Blue Jays. Silver Sluggers, Giancarlo Stanton gets the DH1. Catcher, Salvador Perez of the Royals. First base was Vladimir Guerrero Jr. of the Blue Jays. Second base, Jose Altuve of the Astros. Third base, Matt Chapman, also of the Blue Jays. That's part of the reason why they're able to make it all the way and win the World Series. And then you got the outfield, shortstop, Bo Bichette, another Blue Jay, getting it. In the outfield, we have Mike Trout of the Angels. I don't know why I keep skipping over it. Aaron Judge of the Yankees. And then Yordan Alvarez of the Astros. As far as postseason MVP, I know I'm not showing it here, but Danny Jansen did get both postseason and World Series. He destroyed us on the way to dominating in the World Series. For the National League, Pete Alonso gets it of the New York Mets, hitting .299, 46 homers and 133 RBIs. Both of those led the league. Cy Young was Sandy Alcantara. He goes back-to-back, winning his second straight Cy Young with a 2.02 ERA in a 22-win season. And the batting title was Freddie Freeman of the Dodgers. And the reliever of the year in the NL was Alexis Diaz, who had a 1.13 ERA and 49 saves. Rookie of the year is Kodai Senga. He's the Mets starting pitcher they grabbed in the offseason. He turned in a very good year for them. Hank Aaron, Freddie Freeman. And then the Gold Gloves for them was Sandy Alcantara, JT Realmuto. First base was Christian Walker. Second base was Nico Horner. Third base, we got Christopher Morel. Shortstop, Dansby Swanson. A lot of Cubs getting Gold Gloves this year. In the outfield, you got Connor Joe of the Pirates. You got Brandon Nimmo of the Mets. And then you got Tyrone Taylor of the Brewers. For them, the Silver Sluggers, Matt Carpenter turns into Silver Slugger season in his 37 age season. How about that? Will Smith gets it. First base, Pete Alonso, of course. Second base, Thairo Estrada of the Giants gets the Silver Slugger Award. Third base, Manny Machado. Shortstop, Willie Adames. And then the outfield is Brian Reynolds, Seiya Suzuki, and Juan Soto. So that does it for your Seattle Mariners and this series. The series has come to a close, and we can officially close the book on MLB The Show 23. As far as future plans for MLB The Show 24, I know it's a couple months till the game comes out, so there's really not going to be anything that comes out in the next month or two. But once you get into February, we'll start to see some news pop up. And I do want to do an MLB The Show 24 series. I want it to be my best baseball series. It's where I started really with this channel back in 2020. I thought baseball was a big key component. I haven't really done a good baseball series the way I did at the beginning. So I really want MLB The Show 24 to be the best one. I have a couple of teams in mind. Obviously, I still got a lot of time. Free agency hasn't really fully developed yet, so I don't want to make any choices until it gets closer to the game. But if you do have a team that you'd like me to see me do in MLB The Show 24, please leave it in the comments. I appreciate you guys and the support of the series. As far as what's going to be on the channel going forward, we're going to do obviously the Commanders, and I do have a second series in mind, and it is going to be one you've seen in the past. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure you drop that like and you subscribe down below, especially if you want more franchise content. This is Mr. Rob, and I'll see you in the next one.